We are and always will be a nation of immigrants.
This is my country, my damn country. Give me my country, you can keep the rest.
Bold men and women yearning for freedom and opportunity who leave their homelands and come to a new country to start their lives over.
We were strangers once too.
My country, my damn country. Give me my country.
Hello, 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 aliens and allies. Your friendly Russian is here. This is We the Aliens podcast, and I'm your host, Sasha Kapustina. Thank you for tuning in. This week on the podcast, Charlie Antillon. Charlie is a salsa and bachata DJ, one of the best in Los Angeles. Salsa people know him. Salsa people love him. And I've been wanting to chat with Charlie for a long time. Charlie has a very special place in my life and lives of hundreds of people, salseros and salseras, who come to his parties 2-3 times a week, every week for years. And I remember the very first time I came to Charlie's party. It was a shaky period in my life, and it was just the beginning of it, and I didn't even know what was coming, but I could feel something was coming. Things were falling apart around me and inside me, and I didn't want to be around anyone, and I couldn't stand being alone. I just wanted out of myself, and meditation wasn't doing the trick. So on a Monday night, I ended up at a club in Santa Monica, West End, and it's Charlie's night, salsa night. And there's an intro class before social dancing, so for those of you who are like me, who have always wanted to try salsa but don't know how to start, this is how you start. You take an intro class before social dancing at a club. And Charlie taught a few basic steps. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. And then there's social dancing. And so I'm standing there in the corner trying to blend into the wall, watching people dance. But eventually someone dragged me out of that corner and showed me that it wasn't as impossible and intimidating as it seemed. And to this day, I'm grateful to this guy because I would have left and I probably wouldn't have come back. And this is what I love most about salsa scene. It's this feeling of community. Salsa familia. It doesn't matter how old you are, what skill level, where you're from, or what you do for a living. You come here, you take in the music and the music and dance takes you in. And of course, there's the dark side of salsa scene with creepy guys and mean girls and jealousy and whatnot. And yeah, you could look at that bunch and say, oh my God, what a jungle. But this is not what I saw. To me, salsa became my church. And now that I know Charlie's story, which you're about to hear in a minute, it makes even more sense. And don't take it the wrong way, please. I don't mean to diminish the importance of church, the real church, for those of you who are believers. But I grew up without religion, and all I have is my faith in people. And in the time when my faith in humanity was challenged, dancing became an opportunity to connect with a community in a very basic, simple way. You come to the same place at the same time, you see the same people, and when you step onto the dance floor, you're in the moment with this other person, and you create together, and you're there for each other, and you listen to each other, and you support each other. And it's very simple, but it's very human. And it's such a great way to celebrate life. I don't know, guys. I don't know if it's a bit much for an intro for a podcast. I guess what I'm trying to get at is how grateful I am to salsa and to this community and to Charlie for playing the music and making it a celebration. It pulled me through. All right, a bit much. Yeah, well, your friendly Russian, as every Russian, comes with a pre-installed Dostoevsky. Can you tell I miss dancing? Well, this was my little ode to salsa. And now, on to my conversation with the leader of our Warehouse Senator Jones Chinaland West End Gramercy congregation, DJ Charlie. I usually start with everybody with the same question. How long have you been in the States, and where did you come here from?
Well, I am from Guatemala, from Guatemala City, which is the northest country in Central America. You know, we have border with Mexico in the north and El Salvador and Honduras in the south, and we have beach on Atlantic and Pacific. Although it's a very very small country. I came here to California in 1995 permanently. I visit California before, and I visited Texas and Colorado and New York and other states in the north before just visiting. But I came to live in California on 1995.
And what was your life like back home at that time?
Oh well, um, very differently occupationally, I guess. But my bachelor degree has credits for being a teacher. So I worked for a private college in Guatemala and a private Christian college in Guatemala, and I was a math, biology, and Spanish teacher. I started teaching there as a PE teacher, and little by little, I ended up being the assistant principal for the high school part of the private school.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about 4 years. And I was very young. And I was very blessed also to have that opportunity. But my passion was always music since I was a kid. And so I was working two full-time jobs. I had school, and I was working for a church, a Christian church in my country, and I was part of the music ministry. And so I'm a musician, and I'm also a music teacher, or I was back then. And that was my life there, and I was pretty content. I was happy, very happy of what I was doing, because I love working with kids and I love doing music. So yeah, my life wasn't near perfect, but I was very happy doing what I was doing. Yeah.
Right. And what was your idea of America at that time?
Well, my idea of America hasn't changed. When I say America, I think of the whole continent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
From Alaska all the way to Patagonia. But and I've been blessed to know many places in the whole American continent. But because of my previous job, I used to travel a lot. But talking about the U.S., a lot of my family, especially my cousins and uncles, were very um, eager to come here, right? To get the life and get the opportunity of to come to the land of opportunity. But it was never my dream. I'm, like I said, I was far from like set. It was not like I had all this money and I didn't own a vehicle. I used to take an hour and the bus for an hour and a half just to get to work. So in a very precarious situation, the bus the public transportation in my country is to this day very dangerous situation. So probably even more so than when I was a kid. But I was happy doing what I do, and in my life had a sense of purpose, and working with kids and also working in the music department of the church. So I was fine. I didn't dream of coming here, and then but I had an invitation from I worked for a very large church organization that had branches in all over Latin America and Spain. So the second largest congregation of our church was here in LA. So I got an invitation from the pastor here in LA. He was traveling with the whole music band to Guatemala to play in a concert. So we were making this huge concert in the biggest cover venue for arts in Guatemala, which is the National Theater. And the band, the band of my church was going to alternate with the band of LA, in this big music festival. So, and I was supposed to play with I was supposed to play with my band, from
Hmm.
Guatemala, but I was deployed as a missionary in another little town, and then when I came back, I didn't make it in time for.
Oh.
I didn't make it in time for the rehearsals. Basically, I lost my opportunity. And that's to make a very long, dramatic story really short.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine. Oh
yeah,
my
I mean, I was
God.
heartbroken. It was bad. It was bad. So it was bad. You try to do the right thing and you always get yourself in trouble. That's the story of my life.
Oh
That's the
man,
story
tell
of
me
my life.
about it.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, you think you're going to receive you with with some sort of congratulations because you come from a missionary trip, and then the first thing they say to you, oh, sorry, you didn't make it to rehearsals, you were not here on time and you got in trouble. And that's so anyway. So the funny thing is, the guy that I was teaching to play is the guy that took my spot, and then I was free. So when the pastor, and this is a funny story, because when the pastor from LA came, and first thing he said is, we made a friendship because he used to travel a lot to Guatemala, and we became friends because we both love soccer. So we used to play soccer together. That was the link. That was the first link. So he was the first thing. He saw me. He came to church like, "Hey, Flaco." I was very skinny still, and that was my nickname. So, "Hey, Flaco, we're gonna go play soccer. You ready?" Yeah, 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 Pastor. Let me know when. We'll go. And also, man, we're gonna play together in the concert, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm not playing anymore. He's like, what? What? You're not playing? Are you kidding me? You have to play. And then he stopped for a second, and you can see, you can almost hear, the engines on his brain moving. And then he said, if you're not going to play with them, why don't you play with me? Because I don't have a percussionist. That was my instrument back then. I used to play congas. You can see here in my
Yeah.
background, I have my, that's a mini conga. That's for my baby. But I have real size congas here behind
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I was playing congas and timbales and Latin percussion. So my eyes lit up. I mean, like, my whole body lit up when he gave me he offered for me to play. So I said,
Wow.
hey, if you figure it out with my boss, and he said, okay, if you have the connections, I cannot ask because I'm supposedly not playing, but I'm sure you can fix it. I'm sure it's not the same when the soldier asks for a favor and when the generals talk, right? So
Yes.
so I said, you fix it, I'm there. So he did, and I ended up
Wow.
playing with this band. So I mean, there is a lot of nice details of the story, and I get emotional with it because it's part of my life. But for the sake of this interview, I will skip certain things. So just the concert went really good. The concert was really good, and then he invited me to go on a short tour to Central and South America, and we went for 3 months in a
Wow.
tour just because the concert was so good. And then at the end of the 3-month tour, he offered me a position to work full time for the music ministry in Los Angeles, and I just said yes, and I that's how I moved, and I came here in September of 1995. Yeah.
Wow. This is a crazy story. It was worth it, the going on the missionary mission
And fail, and yeah, I mean, like,
and be late.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, not intentionally,
Yeah.
but yeah. So yeah, I was.
You
I,
were rewarded in the end. It worked
oh
out.
yes, big time, big time. Yes, big time.
So, and what was your idea as you were coming here? What was your expectation of what was the plan? Were you were coming to work for a little bit, or were you moving, or what was the hope? What was the dream? What was the plan?
Well, like I said, since I didn't ever had a dream of coming here, right? It was just like, oh, cool, I mean, like, what? I mean, like, the excitement was because I was gonna come to do the same thing I was doing in Guatemala, but
Mhm.
but in my country, I was basically working for the private school
Mhm.
so I can generate some money so
Yeah.
I can donate all this time to the church.
Right.
I was working full time for the church without getting paid. Now, when
Right.
I was sent on trips, the
Mhm.
church will cover my expenses
Right.
in a very, very basic, humble way.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. They
Yeah, it's
they they
church.
they cover what you eat. They pay for what you eat, and they give you a
Yeah.
bed or a sleeping bag. Something. But anyway, but I was happy doing it. Now here, this was going to be my job, so I was very excited because of now, if
Yeah.
that would have happened in my country, I would have been so happy too. But now I'm moving to the big US of A, and with a
Yeah.
job, and I'm coming with a visa, and I'm coming on a plane. It was just crazy, my
Yeah.
brain was exploding,
How
and
old were you?
I was 24. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
was I was 24. My brain
Coming
was
to LA.
yeah, in style. Yeah, it was just crazy, and all my percussion set in my country. I own a very few small things, and most of my set, when I had to gather my set for big concerts, it was mostly borrowed.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember a very good friend of mine. My parents were musicians too,
Mhm. Mm.
and so I have some of my musician friends were friends of my parents, were older
Uh-huh.
people, so
Yeah.
um and so I remember my congas. I used to borrow them from one of our neighbors that used to play in a nightclub.
Mhm.
So that was the only time I enter a nightclub before I mean during the day, because I never went to a nightclub. I mean, I never imagined me working in a nightclub like I do now, just because I was so involved in what I was doing. But
I was just like, it's just such a transition
oh no,
from
no, it's a totally different world. Yeah, people that knew me back then can't believe what I do now, and vice versa.
yeah.
So yeah. So I used to
I can
borrow
imagine.
the congas from my friend, and I had to pick him up at this nightclub and get him.
Mm.
And I was like so afraid to get into it, like I was feeling that one of the people from church was going to spot me and think that I was doing something wrong, Anyway,
Were you very religious? Were
I
you
wouldn't call it, I never call myself religious. I have strong, deep faith in God because
Mhm.
I have seen my little faith working big things, and then my faith got a tiny little bigger, and then I've seen bigger things, and then
Mhm.
faith is like a spiritual muscle.
Yes.
You give a little bit to it, and then you start seeing things, and then you believe, oh, okay, well, so I am not believing in hoax or stories, and this is real. And to me, um God is real, and my faith is based on something that is real. So yes, but the church that I grew up in was very strict. So
Mhm.
yes, and I was a little bit of a revolutionary kind of guy because I
Uh-huh.
you know I always had my ideas, and I had no problem expressing them, and I was always in trouble, but
I can see
yeah,
that.
always in trouble,
Oh.
but never. I grew up in a system where you respect authority, so I never defy authority, even though I'm not even when I'm not agreeing
Mhm.
with the policy that a representative authority is trying to enforce. Um, I don't defy authority because I grew up in a very strict system. Yes,
Hmm. So as a 24-year-old um, guy coming to Los Angeles from Guatemala who was kind of shying away from clubs,
totally.
what was your expectation of life here? What was your thought? Like, what did you think it was going to
Well,
be?
not much. I mean, like in my, I thought I was gonna come here and and work Tuesday to Sunday because that's pretty much when you work for a church. That's your schedule. The hardest part,
Hmm.
the harder you work is it's on the weekends. So usually Monday is our
Yeah.
day off. So you work from Tuesday.
Same as
Yeah,
DJs,
yeah,
probably.
but no, actually,
Not in
my
your case.
strongest night when I started as a DJ was a Monday. That's why I still love Mondays. You
Oh,
you didn't see much of West End.
I didn't.
No.
No, I
So
didn't. Didn't
unfortunately,
catch.
but Monday traditionally was my strongest night. My first
Hmm.
steady gig as a DJ, doing my own thing, like calling it my club, was on a
Mm-hmm.
Monday. It wasn't
Huh.
yeah, and wasn't the old business section of Santa Monica. Like when you take Maine and you go towards Venice,
Mm-hmm.
and still in Santa Monica, like you're going towards Venice and you pass Ocean. There is a section of restaurants and bars there. There's like eight
Yeah.
restaurants and bars there in a block. Well, my little place was the second to last,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called the Moore Bar, and it was very, very, very small, hole in the wall, concrete floors, smelly bathrooms, but we had a very, very powerful combination. I mean, like the blocks were just putting themselves together, and it was amazing. That Monday was amazing. I was a DJ that was starting. We had a promoter that it was starting. We had a teacher that it was starting, but everybody in their own right developed to be a very good in what we did at the end. The
Mm.
promoter back then was my same partner for all these years. Fernando, where we in the salsa world, people knows him at Doc Rumba, and we've done some of the biggest free festivals. Dr. Rumba and I were put together for some of the biggest salsa free festivals that city of LA has seen. And yeah, and then the teacher there was Christian Oviedo, which now it is a
Mm.
13-time world salsa champion. And
Wow.
yes, and the whole crew was just amazing. We had this amazing bartender, um that it was like pull out of straight out of a movie, and one of those bartender Vegas, with tricks with the glasses and serving drinks, and
Hmm.
and rolling the beer on the counter, and will stop in front of you, kind of a thing. So it was a very special place. And if you talk to the old the dancers that have been, they don't necessarily have to be old, because we're talking about something that happened 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
my crowd in that place was very young. So right now, these people is under 40. But if you talk
Hmm.
to those people that have been in salsa and the West Side for that long, they remember the Morbar very strongly, because it was a very charismatic place. Anyway,
That's so cool. I love it. I love it.
so yeah,
I,
I don't know how did we end up there, but you say my expectation of living here the same. It was my
yeah.
expectation. It was the same as over there, in my country. I thought that I was going to live with a family, because that's usually what happened to missionaries, and I thought that I was going to be working hard and in the church and doing music and doing what we love, and it was pretty much that in the beginning. Yeah, it
Uh-huh.
was pretty much that in the beginning.
And then life happened.
Yeah, well, and then the guitar player of the church band was in love with salsa, and
Uh-huh.
he invited, and I was barely starting to get into the music part of salsa, because I
Hmm.
moved from playing drums to play Latin percussion, to play congas.
Hmm.
So I was listening to to salsa artists, just to learn the rhythms and to learn the
Hmm.
the flavor of the percussion instruments. So
Hmm.
very cautiously, because it wasn't like necessarily accepted by my church, that like
Right.
listening to secular music and stuff like that. But I was,
Mm.
like I said, I was revolutionary, but I also was very respectful, and I did it very privately. And but this guy loved
Right.
salsa, and definitely the church here in LA was a
Hmm.
little more relaxed than in Guatemala. So this
Hmm.
guy invited me to a salsa concert. I don't know if in your
Mm.
salsa years have you heard of Jose Alberto El Canario? Is a famous.
No,
It's a famous.
I'll look him up.
Oh yeah, but he has a lot of songs. I don't know. Am I allowed to play music here for you? No, huh? Maybe not.
You'll just send me a song and
And
I'll
you get into it. Yeah,
insert
you
it.
go.
Hmm.
I play a lot of El Canario songs that you've heard them in the
Mm.
clubs.
I'm sure I
Like
have. Yeah.
Lo que quiero es salsa. And so anyway, we went to this almost private concert, because it wasn't a very small club. So when I
Hmm.
when I walked in, I remember walking in this back in 1995. You could not enter a salsa club if you didn't have a coat, a jacket, a men's jacket. You
Mm.
need a formal coat. Not you didn't need
Hmm.
like the whole tie and shirt, but you need a coat, and you
Yeah.
need to look presentable. No
Yeah.
jeans, and no tennis
Yeah.
shoes, and no caps. And it was they had any work, because everybody looked so nice inside, and they have to impose it on the guys, because the girls always look great, and the girls were like all dressed up, right? So they were just
Yeah.
the code was mostly for the guys, trying to keep even the
Yeah.
looks.
Upscale.
And it was
Yeah.
just nice walking into a salsa club. So
Yeah.
I walked in. This small club was packed. Um, the name of the club was Rodolfo's. That disappeared, and it was on a Monday too.
Mm.
It was on a Monday too, and so the stage was all the way to in a very little corner way at the end of the place, and we had a spot in front of the stage. So when the
Mm.
guy started playing, I was right there, and then everybody was like clapping and like screaming hands up. There was there was a no.
Salsa
Yeah, yeah,
concert.
yeah. There was, yeah, there was no cell phone, so there was no, there were no.
Oh,
I'm not saying no cell phone. There was no smartphone, so it wasn't like
yeah,
taking videos, and we were there to
yeah,
enjoy the moment instead of recording and try to
yeah,
tell people that we enjoy the moment later. It was
yeah.
anyway different, the totally different vibe. But um by the second song, everybody just stopped clapping and went dancing. And, I was left in the front. I was left in the front. I was enjoying the band. My friend even told me, "Hey, man, I'm going to dance. I'm going to go dancing." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, there I'm by myself. And there is this beautiful, very well dressed lady very close to me, also in front of the stage. And when I was looking around because I noticed everybody was leaving, so I'm like, "Oh my chicken, what should I do? Do I stay here by myself? What do I do? Do I hide? Do I go to the bar?" So when I was looking around and I look, there was this lady next to me. We made eye contact and she smiled at me. I froze completely.
First, the only time in your life you ever froze.
Completely. No, 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 no. My parentheses, try to make this short. My stage person. Don't confuse my stage personality with who I am,
Yeah,
because I'm very comfortable with the stage. Always been since I was a kid in school, and
yeah.
then playing for the church just made it, you know, just just made it
Your
made
space.
it bigger. But and I'm very comfortable with the stage. Um, I mean, playing for 200 people in salsa, it's a big deal. But playing in a concert for a church with a stadium with 30,000 people is a bigger deal.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
bigger deal, and I was comfortable there, and I was much younger.
Mm,
But here, one on one, I am not the kind, believe it or not, I have never,
I do.
I have never walked into. First of all, I don't go to bars. I only go salsa dancing, but I don't go
Mhm.
drinking. I don't go to happy hours. I don't go to that.
Yeah,
And if I ever do, it's dragged by my friends. But I never
yeah.
been to a club by myself and like go and talk to a complete stranger and say, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" Never done that in my life. Never. No,
No
never
way.
ever. I don't even know if I can pull it. Just like, hey, hey, baby, you look
Oh
like I
my
can buy you a drink.
God.
I never done that. Never. So one on one, I grew up very very shy. I was always very intimidated to talk to the girls when I was very young. So when this girl saw me, it was like a flashback to my childhood, and I froze, and I smiled back, but then I shy away with my eyes and I look back to the stage. Now I know that she was opening herself for dancing, right? She was like saying, "I'm here and I'm smiling. Are you going to ask me to dance?" She probably, to this day, I still, feel bad about the moment because I think she thought that I was a jerk because I had the looks. I look like a dancer.
Yeah.
I had the looks.
Yes,
I'm,
I'm sure. I'm sure
I'm
you did then
slim and
too.
I'm well dressed and I'm all the way in the front. I mean, I look like I'm in the spot and I know what I'm doing. So me turning my eyes on her, it totally, now I know that she probably wanted to dance, and when I say the look of a dancer, I talk of my physique.
Yeah.
I'm not implying at all that she was mesmerized by my looks, because that's definitely not the case, right? So she wanted to
Oh.
dance, I think, and she probably took it wrong that
Hmm.
I didn't.
You didn't.
He thought that I was a jerk. I'm sure, But when the song was over, my friend finally came, and I dragged him to the bar, and I said, "Bro, don't leave me alone here. Don't leave me alone here. This place is dangerous. People look at you. I don't know what to do." This girl was smiling. I mean, it's like, "Oh, she wanted to dance," and I'm like, "Yeah, but remember, I don't know how to dance." So and then he said, "Oh, that's okay. They offer lessons in this place every Monday." So that was it. I told myself that I was gonna learn how to salsa dance, and I was not gonna, you know, and I was not gonna be like rude to another lady ever in my life.
Look
So
away.
so I used to come every Monday there. The DJ was Super DJ Robbie, which now is a good friend of mine, and I still admire him just like back then. He's one of the most amazing DJs we have in LA and in the whole world. And I had the honor to have him in my broadcast live on Facebook a couple of times,
Mm.
and it was just nice to share time with him. Anyway, and one of my favorite bands in LA used to play there, Conjunto Costa Azul, and my teacher, the one that taught me my basics, the one and only Laura Canelius. She still teaches on the West Side. Has a
Mm.
studio there on the West Side. She's amazing, and I used to go there. And believe it or not, it took me about 6 months to be comfortable with my basics. It was very hard for me because I never danced anything with a count ever in my life before.
It's
It's
hard.
hard. So it took me a long.
And it's harder for
It,
guys
it
to
took me a
start,
long time. It took me a long time. Yeah.
but you were committed.
But yeah, oh yeah, I was there every Monday. It was my day off. It was perfect. I was there always early. I think that's the only thing I've been early in the salsa world because I'm always late. And I'm famous for it too. I'm not proud of it though. But yes, it is.
I'm there with
It
you.
is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So salsa happened, and then what happened with church work?
Well, yes. Well, salsa happened, and it was just like the thing I did on Mondays, right? The thing I did
Mhm.
on Mondays, and I when I said that I was a revolutionary thinker in my church, I also mentioned that I was respectful, So, but
Mhm.
I let people know all my thoughts, but I never imposed my thoughts on anybody. I was not the kind
Yeah.
of people to say, "Oh, dancing it's okay, so you have to dance because I dance." No, I mean I was just saying, "Hey, I think
Yeah.
dancing is fine, so I'm just gonna go dancing." I never hide, I never
Mhm.
hide from. And the pastor used to joke about it because he used to say, "Charlie, man, you're lucky. People love you so much in this church. They know you go salsa dancing and nobody says anything bad about you. And then on Sunday, you're here leading worship and everybody's fine with it. If I do it, they will kill me." And I said, like, "Hey, you never know. You should try." I used to tell them that. So anyway, so yes, salsa happened. The church that hired me here, and that I came here after 2 years, it couldn't keep me full time anymore, and they because the church had some financial problems, and they couldn't keep the whole ministry of the music ministry full time anymore. So the pastor talked to me and said, like, "Charlie, I know we brought you. If you want to go back to your country, I can buy you a ticket and send you off in a nice way." And I said, "Well, pastor, I you know I these were exactly my words, and I don't tell this story very often, but I just remember I said, I don't think the purpose that I came to the US it's fulfilled." I told him that
Mm.
I was 26, and I said, "I would like to stay if that's okay with you." And he was very surprised, and I add to it,
Mm.
"And don't worry about the money. I when you met me, I didn't work for the church for money. So if you cannot pay me, that's okay. I'm sure I can find a job here in LA, and I will still support the church." So I went back to do here in LA what I did in my country. I did find a church. One of the friends that I met in church, they they had a telecommunications company which they
Mhm.
install telephone systems and computer networks and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. What's called low
Mhm.
voltage, everything that has wires but is not electricity.
Mhm.
So,
N
uh,
no, I don't, but I believe you.
but yeah. So yeah. So I found a job, and I
Yeah.
was still doing my job in the church. I was still in charge of
Mhm.
I because everybody else left. When there was no money,
Yeah.
I ended up being in charge of the whole ministry. So I
Mm.
became in time I became second to the pastor in that church. It was a very very large
Mm.
congregation, and I was just the worship pastor, and I was just
Mhm.
his, I guess, his, maybe not his right hand, but I'm sure I was his left hand. And
Yeah.
excuse me, and yeah, and I did that for 5 more years. So I worked for that church for about 7 years, and I was still going dancing, but it was just that.
And what did you feel was that purpose when you said that?
I didn't know. I just felt like, that the reason why I just felt like the reason why I came to the US, it was greater than 2 years working for the church and getting paid, and now, oh, there's no money and just go back to my country. I didn't feel
Yeah.
like that was it.
Yeah.
So I offered my help to the church, and of course they took it. And
Yeah.
so I helped the same pastor that brought me here. I helped him for 5 more years without
Wow.
receiving 1 cent of compensation. And on top of that, I started learning the communications industry.
Mm.
And it was very good for me. It was very good. I worked in that
Yeah.
industry for 15 years, and it was very very good.
And And so at that point, like, was there a plan?
You know, I don't plan much. Um, maybe that's bad, but
I don't know.
but I don't know. You know,
I'm there
people
with you
judge
too.
it as a
So
bad thing. I don't plan much. Um, because sometimes we made a lot of set plans that don't happen.
yeah.
It's just don't. So my analogy of me and life is more is like a marathon runner.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you have to start, or you know that life started, and you know it's going to end, and you know it's long,
Hmm.
and you plan for that. You know, you plan to finish strong.
Hmm.
But a marathon runner, you know, a short distance runner can be strong and bulky and like, you know, but when you're going for the long, and I'm going for the long, darling. I mean, I
Yeah.
wanna, oh, I wanna die old, you know. So I keep myself light, not just physically, what I try to do. Quarantine is not
Hmm.
helping to keep me light because I have gained in 4 months. I've gained a lot of weight, you know, that I never did in this much weight in my life. You know, I did gain some weight when I came to the US eventually with the years, you know,
Hmm.
but
We all
but
do.
not in 4 months.
It's the
But not, yeah,
U.S.
but not in 4 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I keep myself live, but that's not just not for the body, but most importantly, I keep myself live in my soul and in my spirit. You know, I don't hold
Hmm.
grudges, and I don't set my heart in plans just in case they don't happen, and I'm just ready to just keep going. You know,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that's how I see myself in life, and how I see the opportunities in life is like surfing. You know, you prepare
Yeah.
yourself with hopefully a good surfboard, and if you can afford it, you will have your wetsuit that it should be nice. My wetsuit is
Hmm.
very, 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 very old, but it works great. And yeah, I would love to buy one of those
As long as it
super cool
works.
new ones to look super cool, but this one still works. So, and right now there's
Yeah.
no
I
time
know.
for no or money for it. So, you know, anyway, but talking about life, you know, you equip yourself the best you can for life,
Yeah.
and you're trying to be good at what you do, but you
Yeah.
cannot create waves. A
Hmm.
bigger power than you create the waves, and that is what I think. I try to be good at riding waves in life. You know, when I see an opportunity, I just take it and try to make the best out of it for me and my family and the people around me. And I try
Yeah.
to spread the love, and I try to always share, and that's my number one thing. And here in my house, and my kids know that number one thing for me is respect and sharing, and
Hmm.
respect of life, that is, you know. And but I cannot create the waves, so I the only thing I can do is just
Right.
try to see it and try to write them, you know, for as long as I can,
Catch 'em.
for as long as I
Yeah.
can. So yes, you know, that analogy I use for what I did. You know, I worked in church for as long as I could. It was a long time. I served in church for a total of 20 years,
Mm.
and so I'm basically a veteran of that army. And
Yeah.
then yeah, and then I've been in salsa since I came here, but as a DJ since 2000 and the end of 2005. Um, you know, it's when like the middle, not the end, the middle of 2005 was when I was, you know, starting with the DJ situation. And
So tell me, so when you came here, you left your life back in Guatemala and you left your family. What did they think about this whole situation?
well, they were never like the happiest of me being a full-time musician. You know,
Mm.
that's in our countries, that's not well
Well,
seen.
tell me country where it is seen as a
Yeah. And
stable job,
well,
a
you
good
know,
career.
but good thing I wasn't a dancer back then, because that's even worse, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh
bad.
God.
That's bad even here. So,
It.
which is, you know, so then, oh, you're a dancer. Oh, you're a salsa dancer. Oh man, you know. So anyway,
Yeah.
but my life has been full of critique, a
Mm.
lot of it, and that's why I keep myself light. You know, I don't hold
Mm.
grudges, and I against people, and whatever people throw at me, I see it, I analyze it, and I said, okay, well, that's their opinion. I put it down, and I keep myself light. So,
But hold on, but your parents, you said they were musicians.
well, yeah, well, they met in music school. My parents
Mm-hmm.
split before I turned 2,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't met my father until I was 10 years old. And I
Okay.
didn't, I mean, I saw him as a baby, but I don't remember. And then I saw him a couple of times
Right.
when I was 10. And then I saw him again when I was 18.
Mm.
So he was not around, but his genes were, and he,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had some strong challenges, you know,
Mm.
with my mom and, being a couple and, and he was not around as
Yeah.
a father, but he was a great guy. I mean, like the stories I've heard of him, it was
Mm-hmm.
somebody. I have nothing against him, although and he was not around, not physically or emotionally or financially, but nothing
Mm-hmm.
against him. Just
Right.
it's hard. It's hard to be a father. It's hard to be a husband, and some people just don't find that direction, and they don't have also a voice of reason to tell them do this, do that, and or we don't look for
Yeah.
it, and it's hard. So anyway,
Yeah.
basically, and then my mom graduated, and my dad was a professional musician. He had a
Mm-hmm.
PhD in music, and
Mm.
my mom was she graduated from school music teacher, right? But she
Mm-hmm.
didn't teach for very long. Although I grew up with a
Mm.
piano in my house, which was very very lucky, and especially in my country. But
Mm.
and that's where I used to play with it when I was a kid. My computer that you're seeing right now, and the image you're seeing right now is set on top
Mm-hmm.
of my electric piano. Because I
Mm.
play for the kids sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
That's nice. We didn't A piano didn't fit in our apartment, and so my parents said, "You know what? Why don't you learn guitar?"
oh, okay. Do you
So
play
that's what I
guitar?
did. I play guitar.
Okay, yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, as a Russian, I probably expect of you to play piano, but guitar is nice too. I love guitar.
Yeah.
Pro-
Well, in Israel, there's a joke if a Russian immigrant comes off the plane without a violin, means he's a pianist.
there you go.
So that's
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah. So, but you're a guitarist.
Yes.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah.
So your mom, so still, even growing up in the family, that's the thing. I ended up working in film. I come from a family of scientists, and I was supposed to be a lawyer. And so to everybody, it was a big shock that I went
Oh
into the
yeah.
arts, and that was met with a lot of tension
Yeah.
and rejection. But I would think that in a family of musicians, and your mom was studied music,
Yeah.
your path would be a little more accepted.
Well, you know what? I grew up in more contact with the family of my mom, and as you can
Mhm.
imagine, my father wasn't very well thought of because
Right.
he was not around. So
Yeah.
yeah, so musicians were just a bad rep. And then my mom did
Oh.
did graduate from the school, but she worked in a school for a year, and then she had
Mm.
to stay home to be a full-time parent. And then so she didn't do much. She didn't do
Yeah.
much of the whole music thing. So but music is very altruistic thing, and that's the way they see it in my country, but there's no money making. So everybody was against it. Everybody was against
Mm.
it. So yeah.
But you pulled it
But
off.
I don't know. I'm still trying, so but my knowledge of music during all these years, I play since elementary, and then I play in high school, and then I play in church, and then I play here, and then because of all the years I work in church in the music ministry, I learn sound.
Mhm.
I mean, I work as a sound engineer for more than a decade, so I am a
Mhm.
live mix sound engineer, and
Mhm.
I've recorded, things live, so I know I have very good understanding of that, and that paved my way for a DJ,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
because I mean, like here in my house, I have in a very corner with very humble stuff, but I have a mini studio that I use for and I know all the ways that you can connect to to make something simple, make it look good,
Yeah, make it work.
sound good, and
Yeah.
I humbly I say that a few of my DJ friends have actually called me to
Mhm.
for technical support, how to connect to
Yeah.
do their live videos on Facebook, because they like my sound. They like how my music
Mhm.
sounds on my videos, and I'm happy to to share it. But
Yeah.
it's so, like I said, you don't create the waves, but if you just try to prepare yourself for it, and then opportunities come, and then you just write it the best you can.
Yeah. And so what did your mom think about you coming to the States?
Well, her dream was always to come here.
Hmm.
Silent dream, I didn't know, but she didn't, and because I was working for the church and she was very devoted to the church, I she was not a big opposition. My grandma, I grew up with my mom and my grandma, my sister.
Mhm.
I have one younger sister, and
Mhm.
my grandma was very sad because I was, I had a steady job in my country that took me forever to find,
Yeah.
forever. I mean, I graduated, um, um, and then I was, like looking and looking, and then finally I got this job, and then I went from PE teacher to assistant principal, and I was making very decent money in my country, and for a teacher, which we're not.
Yeah.
I was just making steady money. I shouldn't say
Yeah.
good money, but steady money, and I was helping my family, supporting my family. As a matter of fact, my very first check that I earned in that place, I brought it and I just put it on the table, and I told my grandma, this is for the house, this is for you guys, and just
Mhm.
take it. Is
Yeah.
my very first check. I don't
Yeah.
I don't want any of it. I want you to have
Yeah.
it. So then I was always, even when I came here, I wasn't making a lot of money with the church, but I was always sending money to Guatemala to my family until I was
Of
able to
course.
bring him here. I brought my mom and my grandma. My grandma didn't
Mhm.
like it, and she only stayed for a few years, and then my mom's still here, and
Mhm.
I still support it in the way I can.
Mhm.
But so there was mixed feelings in the family of me coming here, but
Mhm.
they were not against enough for me not to come. So I
Right.
so so I came. Yeah.
So you stayed.
Yeah.
And so after all these years, do you feel American?
I always have, because of what I said.
American as a yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because I have always fought for that, not fought, but maybe sustain my opinion,
Yeah.
hold my opinion of that America is a continent, and that we should share the same values, because we are one huge big family, or we should be, you know just like
Oh,
you know
that applies to the whole world.
well, yeah,
That's my hope.
exactly, that applies to the whole world, but we are connected by land,
Yeah.
and by and in the whole continent we speak basically three languages,
Mhm.
you know so we speak Spanish, English, and Portuguese, and I mean a little French here and there, but that's pretty much it. So um and in most of our Hispanic countries, like for example Guatemala, to graduate from high school, you have to pass English the same way you pass math. So
Mhm. Yeah.
anyway, so we're one big family. Yeah, the whole world. That's a good point. But I was just saying that
Mhm.
growing up, I always said that we're all Americans, and I I'm a U.S. citizen
Mhm.
since almost since I started DJing.
Uh-huh.
That it came almost at the same time. The next year I became a citizen in 2006, and thank God, my country has a dual citizenship treaty
Mhm.
with the US, so I didn't lose. So yes, I feel American. I feel very much Guatemalan too, but
Mhm.
yeah, I put a lot of work into make my community good. I don't
By your community, you mean
people around me. My By my community, I mean the block where I live. I mean the restaurants where I eat. I mean the clubs where I work. I mean my salsa family. Whether they lived around the corner and they go to the clubs I play on Sunday, or they live in Orange County and they see me once a year for the bachata festival. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, where what I try to I try to put positive energy into everything I touch to keep the circle of goodness in life.
Yeah, I definitely feel it.
Well,
Um, I think we talked one time briefly, and you mentioned that salsa saved you, and
m-
there was the
music. Yes.
music.
I've always in salsa music and the whole salsa scene in general, has been a
Mhm.
big part of it. But I always said that that music has been my therapy. That's what I always say.
So
Yeah.
there was like,
Th-
was it a dark moment
Oh,
in
many.
the
Oh,
process?
many dark moments, darling. I mean, like, look, and I believe that I strongly believe that nature. It is a metaphor or an analogy of
Hmm.
of the spiritual world. What we
Hmm.
can see is set there so we can learn what we cannot see.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and everything that we see is not, sometimes it's not even real. Have you ever watched brain games in Netflix? For
No.
people that is looking for stuff to watch, and they go to
Okay. Yes, I'm at
they
that
go to
point.
Narcos, and they go to, I mean, I don't even know the new
That's
shows.
done.
I don't even know the new shows, but I remember people watching. What was that thing that everybody was watching? The show with the dragons, and like,
Game of
yeah, 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 yeah,
Thrones.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
The show with the dragon.
GOT, and like, yeah. I mean, like, people is looking for something to watch. Watch brain games.
Okay,
It's a big,
I'll do
big,
that.
big eye opener to how your brain works. In order for you to feel safe, your and in order for you to feel safe, you have to feel in control. For you to feel in control, sometimes, for for your brain to give you that feel that you're in control, sometimes your brain lies to you
Mm.
just for you to be comfortable. And that's the best way. I'm not a scientist and definitely not an
Yes.
expert on the subject, but I'm trying to tell you the best of my abilities. You know, for us to make sense of shapes, sometimes we see them in different colors and they are not. And that is the first episode of Brain Games. That they show a geometric object that looks like it's two different colors and it's the same color, and just it's just a visual trick in our brains.
Yeah.
The same way we think that a movie is we're seeing a continuous play, and we're just looking at many
Frames. Yeah.
frames put together. So the
Yeah.
same way, and to this day, even in the digital world, we still see a bunch of frames. There's still
Pixel.
no technology for to film the whole thing.
Yeah.
So and our brain makes up for the rest. It's not the technology. I don't care how developed the technology is. What for us makes it look like a bunch of frames is a movie is our brain,
Yeah.
because we
True.
connect the dots. Yeah. So unfortunately, sometimes we connect dots that they're not there. It's
A lot of
it,
time.
it's exactly, it's our ability, to, like I said, to survive. But we
Yeah.
shouldn't trust everything we see, because sometimes what we're seeing is not there. It's just a fixture of our imagination, because we need it there to keep going.
Yeah.
So going back to what I was saying is that everything we see is not necessarily the real thing. It's just an example of what we need to observe for us to learn the spiritual world. What I mean is,
Mhm.
every day of 24 hours, depending on the season, but roughly have 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. And the darkness is necessary for different things, like the light it is. So in your life, there are cycles. There are dark cycles and light cycles in a bigger way, just like the
Mhm.
life has days, and they have months and weeks and months and years. Your life goes in cycles. There are short cycles like a day, and there are longer cycles, and there are longer cycles. So I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I believe. So, and that's what I've seen in my
I love
life.
that metaphor.
Yeah. So yeah, my life has gone through a lot of dark cycles, and some of things that there are things that nobody knows, like, especially everybody thinks that because I'm always smiling on the stage, my life is perfect, and I make tons of money.
That's the
That
job.
I make tons of money as a DJ. That's because you don't wait for me till I get out of the club, or you don't wait for me when I arrive and you see my car. And you don't see my old car. So people think, that I, just they're positive about me making tons of money and like living the life, and that's why I'm always happy and no troubles at all. But that's not it. What it is,
Well, maybe you're assuming that too about the people. I always think how hard it is to do your job, actually.
the job of an artist is
Staying
always
up,
have. It's always tough.
yeah, and you work every day.
Sometimes.
And well, I don't know. I think you have what, Monday is Gramercy,
Mhm.
Tuesday Senator Jones, Wednesday, where are you at? Oh, you're in
Bogies,
Ventura.
but only once a month, or twice.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, Wednesday is usually my day off, and Thursday.
Okay.
And Thursday is like
And Thursday off.
seasonal,
Okay.
because sometimes I play in downtown at those clubs, like
Yeah.
those like once a month things. So I'm there. But yeah, Wednesday and Thursday are typically my nights off, and then the warehouse, and then
Then the warehouse.
yeah, and then Saturdays is usually like either studios or private parties, or or lessons, and then Sunday is Chinaland, and yeah, I
Yeah,
work.
it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm busy.
I do think about it. I know that you have family, and I think about how, oh my God, with the kids, like, when do you even sleep ever?
Well, I take
Uh,
naps with easy.
that's the way to go. So back to my question. I mean, the reason I'm asking all of, and I'm digging into this, and I'm not going to let you off the hook here,
Good.
is because I do know that as immigrants, as finding ourselves, and that's why I started this podcast, and that's why it's called We the Aliens. Aliens as somebody who is foreign, alien as somebody who doesn't necessarily originally belong to this place. And this podcast is my way of exploring people's stories about how they found their way to belong here. And it usually is not an easy process. And I know that for me, it took a long time to find the ground, and I'm still in that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, like, what was your story there? Like, what were the hard things for you in that process?
I mean, well, I don't know I mean, like how long back you want me to go, but but uh
What
but
was the
but
what
when
was
I
the
started
hardest?
when I started DJing, and you mentioned, that music saved me, and I always, I didn't say it with those words. I say that, the music is my therapy.
Mm,
In general, of course,
yeah,
playing for the church is something awesome, because you are doing it for a cause when you believe that you're helping people, you know
yeah.
get close and to the spiritual world, and stronger spiritually, and emotionally. But also, what I do, I was talking to a friend. I was actually talking to one of my friends from the old days. He's a pastor in Texas, in
Mhm,
Dallas, Texas. And I was telling him, I admire your job just the same way I did, 20 years ago. But I
mhm,
also think that my job is very important, because I serve my community. I serve my
mhm,
community, and I think that my job is important. People talk to me when I started being a DJ. DJ was not cool.
hmm,
Being a DJ, you're a DJ. What kind of a job is that? Thank goodness, when I started, I had a day job. I didn't quit my day
uh-huh,
job right away. Because it was
mhm,
like a hobby.
mhm,
I didn't even want it to be a DJ, but that's a different story. So, um, but I started seeing how I was able, and I was very grateful that I was able to give back into the community that has given me so much.
mhm.
And I was able to give a little back to the community that has given me so much, and I don't get tired of saying it. So
Yeah,
so for me, that's still important, because I know that we all, that's why when people is come to my DJ booth and they have an attitude, even to ask me for a song, or to tell me that they didn't like what I was playing, I try not to take it personal, because everybody's fighting a battle, and we don't see it. I always try to be smiling and have the positive attitude with everybody, even with people that I don't like. I mean, like, there's a few people that I don't like, and those come sometimes 5 times a week to see me because they like my party. Some of those people don't like me personally, mostly because
mm,
they don't even know me, but they
yeah,
know what people say about me, and they don't like it, for whatever reason, and they come with an attitude because they have already a preconceived um, idea of who I am. But I'm always nice to them. I'm always like cordial and try to be warm, and
yeah,
and I keep it going that way, because I don't see him as just this person that is mad at me. I see this person as somebody that it's troubled by something else. And since I'm the
yeah,
first person in front of them, they're going to let me know that they're mad at the world. And then I
yeah,
I try to give back positive energy into that problem, instead of just reacting with the first thing of like, who's wrong with you? You know who I am. You're in my house. If you don't like it, you can leave.
yeah,
Unless there is
yeah,
a total jerk that is offending other people, I don't use my power against people to show my position. I use my power to try to be kind. I use I use I use my position in my clubs to spread love instead of
yeah.
bitterness. So 2005, when my beginnings of a DJ, it was a tough year. right
How
before I
so?
became a citizen. It was a tough year. I was married for 7 years. That's another previous life. I have many lives, darling. I'm like a cat. I am the salsa cat. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So in one of my lives,
Marathon.
I was married, and I was married for 7 years, and but we split up,
Hmm.
and it was just like it was a peaceful split, but still a split. And peaceful in the sense of we didn't fight, we didn't, it was like, oh, you're this piece of garbage. It
Yeah.
was just like we grew apart and we became like roommates. So,
Yep.
but that's another
I
that's another story. So,
that happens.
yeah. So she left. She left, and
Hmm.
with the promise that we were going to try to work it out, but she needed a break. She needed to be by herself to clear her mind, and I didn't
Yeah.
believe in that. I always believed that you have to work it together. I was young
Yeah.
too. And I've matured more since then. I wish I had the head I had back then. The head that I have now, I had it back.
Yeah.
But
That
things
doesn't happen.
things just happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, the same year that she left early in the year. Like beginning of the year,
Mhm.
and then a month later, I got a call from one of my cousins back in Guatemala that my dad had a stroke.
Mm.
And then I left everything and I went to see him, and I tended to him for about 3 weeks, and I left him from I when I arrived in straight from the airport to the hospital. He was in coma, and
Mhm.
when I left the country, he was standing. He stood up with a
Mm.
cane to say goodbye to me. I actually
Mm.
said goodbye to him on his bed, but he lived in a hill, so I had to drive all the way up and use a turnaround, like a roundabout. You have to go uphill because it was very narrow, and to use the
Yeah.
roundabout to come back.
Yeah.
By the time I come back, my dad was standing in his door waving at me, and that
Mm.
is the last image I have of him alive. Because 6 months later, he had another aneurysm, but he died on his way to the hospital, and I went
Sorry.
back. I went back to bury him, and do the whole 9 yards, and that was the same year. And that same year is when that same year was when because I was traveling so much, I lost a lot of work, I lost my job,
Mm.
and also because I was absent for so much. The church that I was helping on for 3 years, I moved from the church of original church. I moved to
Mhm.
this time I was working for a English speaking church,
Mhm.
and I was helping there, and because I was absent, and I guess also there were rumors of my wife leaving me, and then I was traveling a
Mm.
lot, and instead of well, I don't want to talk about bad about anybody, but I wish there was a different approach, but the approach
Yeah.
that they took is like, well, you're not here and we're hearing things about you, so we're going to ask you to take a break.
Mm.
So I lost
Lost a lot.
I lost a lot in 1 year. That was tough. And
Yeah.
that's the same year that I started DJing. And
Mm.
that same thing, and that's when I went back to salsa because I didn't want it to be alone at home, and I wasn't dancing. I already now I knew how to dance. I taught my first wife. I taught her how to dance, and we used
Mm.
to dance just the two of us and go to festivals, or once in a blue moon go to the club and dance at home
Mhm.
all the time.
Nice.
But yeah, but never. But anyway, but I was not going to the clubs like I am or like I was when I was single, and then
Mhm.
but when all this happened, and I couldn't be at home. I'm thinking of my dad, thinking of my family in Guatemala, thinking of my job, thinking of the church, you know,
Yeah.
thinking of my wife. So I used to go to Steven's Steakhouse, and
Mhm.
I was friends with the DJ, and we became closer. But I didn't dance. I used to sit. Are you familiar with the setup of Steven's Steakhouse?
Yeah.
Okay, when
Mhm.
you walk in to the door to the restaurant, you pass where they charge you at the door, and then
Yeah.
you see all these tables and the way to the bathroom, and then if you see to the
Yeah.
right is the DJ booth in this
Yeah.
bar, right? They have this
Yes.
seating area with a bar,
Yeah, and you
like a
can
long
watch the
table.
dancers.
I used to sit on the first chair right in front of the DJ and just listen to the music. And I couldn't dance. I couldn't have a conversation. I was not looking to mingle with anybody. I wasn't even drinking alcohol. I was just sitting there, and it was just like it was just going to dialysis. It was just going for another shot to keep going.
Oh my God.
And but it worked because I lived there more relaxed and I loved the music and I became closer with the DJ that was already my friend, but we became closer and he was like, "Man, I'm gonna play this song for you and I'm gonna listen to this and the band is gonna come up and I'm gonna ask them so we probably can go sing like in very slow nights. The DJ and I we used to like jump in and sing with the band. We were but it took me a while to get up. I was on the floor. I was on the floor and I remember when I was started DJing, that was a big break for me because I was able to just to do the same I used to do in church, which is leave my problems down the stage and just go up and deliver something good for my family.
Hmm.
And I loved it. I loved it because I used to see it. And the more I give, the better I felt. I was giving my all. I wish there were videos so you could see the kind of party I was throwing. I mean, like,
I don't need the video. I know
no,
the
no,
kind
no.
of
You
party
haven't seen anything. You haven't seen anything like those days. I mean, I didn't have a stage. I used to climb on top of a speaker to sing. And the dancer used to climb on top of the other speaker to dance with me. It was just insane. I had people in my DJ booth dancing with their hands up. It was just crazy. People was going nuts. I couldn't even leave my DJ booth. The bartender used to bring the drinks to my booth because it was just, it was insane. It was Mondays. So anyway,
right?
it was tough. It was. There's been, and that's just a little example. There's been really tough times where when I left the church that I worked for here and for 7 years, when I had to leave, that was harsh for me to decide I'm going to stop working here. I'm going to stop collaborating. I'm going to, that was hard
Yeah,
to.
I was gonna ask you, like, what led to that decision to
Well, we had some differences with the pastor, and it
Okay.
was more. Um, Look, you don't work in church because you're perfect. You work in
Mm,
church because you want to, and because there's a lot of people that think that church is important, but nobody wants to donate their time, to that. So you're there because you're available, because you're willing.
mhm,
So sometimes the desire is more important than qualifications.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but I always, in all the years that I served in church, I always consider myself less than perfect. Like
Mhm,
I'm not there because I was the more qualified guy for it. I mean, like not just skillfully as a musician or singer, but you know, it's not like my record was the cleanest. Like
mm,
I'm like this super good, too goody two shoes guy kind of guy. No, it's just that I was willing to do the job, and and
mhm.
and and go through the whole experience. So, but there was always people that were not all that happy with me and salsa dancing, or me
Mm.
and or me and whatever. So
So you ended up having to make a choice.
yeah, because the pastor started like signing, like, I mean, there was a lot of things going on, and there was a lot of envy, and unfortunately, religious organizations are full of that, and people don't understand that church is not a museum for saints, like a
Power and money.
yeah, no, because that's the in Hispanic countries we think that's it, because a Catholic church, it's a museum for saints, and like figures of
Yeah.
saints,
Mhm,
but that's not it. A church is a hospital. People sick come to it, and people looking for God. That when you come to the hospital, it's because you're in bad shape. So that's what it is. So there's a bunch of people that is in
mm,
need, and that's what church is.
mm.
And
Love your metaphors, Charlie.
thank you, darling. I have too many of them. Um,
We never hear them in the
well,
salsa club.
well, I don't have time to talk there, but sometimes you do. Sometimes you do. I
Okay.
talk, and when I
Yeah,
talk is when people don't like me. So they say
that's
keep
true.
playing, keep playing.
true. At the club, nobody wants you to talk. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. When
Everybody
I do the
complains
shows and
about
I took like a couple of minutes to explain something about music or dancing, or everybody's like, Charlie, just be quiet and let's get on with the dancing.
I'm so happy I get to talk to you
Well,
here. That's
thank you, darling. I know we've been trying to do this for quite some time, and I'm sorry, even though we're in quarantine, I'm not available. But my family here, my kids keep me very busy because I run a full time DJ Charlie Daddy daycare here. So yeah, so basically, but yeah, going back to the topic, life goes in cycles, and I've had some really dark ones, and some really really happy ones, but I try to keep a positive attitude. During your dark cycles, you keep thinking of good times and good memories, and you keep going, and hoping for the next wave, and then when it comes, you ride it and you're happy, and then when it's over, and another cycle starts where you hustle until better
yeah,
times come.
yeah.
Um,
And they
yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, I do want to ask you about being an immigrant parent and about combining the two cultures to bring the kids up. So, how do you do that? Like, do you put any particular attention to that, or is it like an organic process?
Well, being a parent for is just is.
How many kids do you
I
have?
have three kids,
Three
and
kids.
I have the oldest one, Carlitos. He is 11, and then Bella, and she's 8, and then Ezekiel, we call him Easy, and he is 2.5, a little bit more than 2.5. So, excuse me, my kids keep me on my toes, and they keep me focused on the good stuff. Because to be a parent, you have to focus on the good stuff, and being a good parent is an impossible job. It's
True.
an impossible. You can't. You can try to be good, you can try to be the best parent you can, but you fail many times, and I believe that it's only by the mercy and providence of God that we ended up being an okay job, and your kids come out the way they come, because whatever we're lacking, somehow they find it in different ways. In my case, I had a wonderful mother, that it was helped by a wonderful grandparents, but
Hmm.
I have heard the saying, "Oh, it takes a village," to raise a kid, and yes, my extended family play a big, big, big role. My aunties and uncles were there all the time, for me, and also the church, the
Hmm.
church too, was just very important for me. People from church, big, big, good role models. Also in church, I found some of the worst examples of how a human can corrupt the good things. So I learned that too. But I was able. I had good teachers, and I was always able to spot when something was rotten, and think of it. Okay, well, this is what I'm not supposed to do. Rather,
Right.
yeah. So when it comes to your question about the kids, I it's being a parent is hard anywhere in the world, but here in
Yeah.
America, it's even harder because, well, number one, they are bombarded by so many cultures. Our culture is a mix, and it keeps growing with more mixes. And we don't have an orientation where to go. It's like everywhere.
Hmm.
It's like and we keep accepting more and more stuff, and we call and we all call it, oh no, that's okay, that's a new thing, and it's good, and it's just what it is, you know
Hmm.
and it's just what it is. And I don't want to talk, I don't want to say anything specific, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or make it think that, oh, I'm so stiff on my ways, or because if I mention something, it is just an example. But in our society, sometimes we see our values twisted, and we just took it
Hmm.
at, oh, that's the new thing, that's the new generation. No, the values should remain the same. But and we're too soft when it comes to our values, and I think we shouldn't. And as a society and as a culture, we
Hmm.
accept anything. We just, oh no, that's like I said, I don't want to get too specific about it because I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
But 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 I believe I believe that a very very strong key in what I teach my kids is respect. Just because, and I tell my kids, just because all the kids don't think the way you are, they're not wrong, or you're not wrong,
Mhm.
and you're not right. They're not right. You're wrong. No, they're different. They think differently. You have to respect that, but you have to also be strong on your values to let them know that they have to respect you. And the way you do that
Mhm.
is not imposing your opinion, it's just by acting. When you act in the same way that you preach, people start respecting you, even if they don't believe the same way you do.
Mhm.
But when you
Right.
say one thing and do another one is when, and where there's a conflict. I mean, I guess we all do the same thing. We tell our kids a bunch of rules that we don't even follow. But so, and what I try to do with my kids is less rules and more following.
Right.
And that is, and
But,
I teach them respect strongly.
the question I was kind of trying to get at is, well, they're growing up American, even though, you're saying there's no American culture,
Yeah, yeah.
there's that thing that we're living in.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
the American culture, Yeah.
it
So
is. It is that thing is the American
the
culture.
American culture.
So, and there is Guatemalan culture, and you
Yeah.
said that like very strongly. So, how do you teach them to combine those two things? Like, do they feel Guatemalan? Well, I don't know. By the way, I don't know. Is your wife
No, no,
Guatemalan?
no, no.
No.
No, my
W-
my wife, Marta, is from Puebla, Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So because of the area we live here in Ventura County, they're more exposed to, definitely way more exposed to um, Mexican culture. Also,
Mhm.
Marta's family, big, a good amount of Marta's family live around here, but my family
Mhm.
is far away. So
Right.
they're not exposed to. But I talk to my kids a lot in Spanish, and
Mhm.
when I do that, I share the language, because every culture has a specific way to talk. So I teach
Right.
him a little. I try to teach him culture through language. Also,
Mhm.
I teach him culture to to through food, and why we cook
Mhm.
certain way and why we eat certain way, um, through music.
What is the most important Guatemalan dish for everybody to know?
The most important Guatemalan dish is that there is a dish. As long as we can have
Mhm.
something to eat, that's important, because not everybody. I mean, we
Yeah.
grew up with where things could be. Sometimes
Yeah.
there was a lot, and sometimes there was hardly any. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, depending on, our country is very small, but it has very different ways to eat depending on the region, because we go,
Mhm.
remember that my little country goes from Pacific to Atlantic,
Yeah.
and you can do that in like I mean, like 4 hours you can cross from one ocean to the other, and the only
Mhm.
reason why you have to do it, it should be a couple of hours, but the reason why it takes you so long is because you have to go around the mountains, because in the
Mountains.
center
Yeah.
of my country there are some huge mountains where the tops froze. I mean, like, we have
Mhm.
big hilltops or mountaintops with ice, not no snow, but ice. And then
Mhm.
way in the north, where, next to Yucatan, we have the Mayan ruins, where it's a tropical jungle. So we have every weather, and with the weather the food changes, and the way they dress change,
Mhm.
and then the music change a little bit, and the whole thing, but they're proud. They know their roots, and then that sometimes the older ones say, like, "Oh, I'm Guatemalan," and I start laughing, and
Mhm.
I said, "Yes, you are." And and but mostly, I always said, because I know a lot of the different. I travel a lot,
Mhm.
to Latin America, and
Mhm.
without putting anybody down, because that's not what we're doing here. On the contrary, um, I experienced that one of the most polite approaches
Mhm.
to other humans,
Mhm.
one of the most polite approaches, is what we teach in my country. We're
Mm.
polite to the extreme. Like, American people get specifically annoyed by Guatemalans that are learning Spanish, because we transliterate everything. By the way, transliteration is a word. because we
Mhm.
translate everything literal.
Yes.
So we talk translating, right? So
Mhm.
before, like let's say, right, that they were friends. Not that I just met you. Let's say they were friends, and I'm gonna ask you
Mhm.
for a favor. So first, I will apologize to you for taking your time of talking
Mhm.
about something I need. Then I will apologize for asking you for the favor. And I'm not you don't even know what I want or what I need.
Mhm.
And I already dump on you 3 apologies, Well,
Mhm.
something like this. Hi, Sasha. Well, um, I'm sorry and excuse me and and I'm sorry. Then I have to bring this up and I hope you can forgive me and please accept my apologies. I need this little tiny little favor from you. Do you think
Mhm.
you can lend me, like a cup of sugar? And you're like, what? All that you wanted was sugar? I thought you were gonna ask me for $1,000 or something. But
Yeah, for sure.
it's just a very silly example that I use, and I use it often
Mhm.
just to say we are polite to the extreme.
Mm.
We are very polite, in our approach. Our approach is very subtle. I'm talking about
Mhm.
how we address strangers. Of course, with my family, we're very,
Right.
we're very
Yeah.
strong with the jokes and like
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm not saying,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
everybody's in
But
Guatemala.
it's good to know.
Everybody in
It's
Guatemala is
good
so
to
well
know.
mannered. No, it's just that. But our approach of, people that try to raise good kids in Guatemala is about manners and politeness is very strong. So that's the same thing I do with my kids. That's my version of culture. I come
Mhm.
from a polite culture and I love it. I've
Mhm.
traveled to other countries and I'm not gonna say names so people don't get the wrong idea. But the in other countries just the approach is a little more strong. It's a little different. A little more direct.
Mhm. Well, that's the thing. In Russia, for example, something that is considered polite, and sometimes people hear me speaking in Russian, and they're like, "Why are you yelling at your friend?" And I'm like, "No, we're just talking. That's just how it sounds. Like, we're totally it's a different
That's
cadence.
just
It's a
how it
different."
sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're from Moscow, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also the accent, the Moscovian accent
Yeah.
is strong because
Yes.
I know I don't know I don't remember my Russian. I learned quite a bit
Oh, you
in
did?
one of my lives before. Yeah, I had Russian friends. I had a lot of Russian friends.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm.
but and yes, I can spot Russian although I don't understand. I pick three
Mhm.
words here and there, but I used to. I had a lot of phrases in my vocabulary because I was fascinated by it. And what I
Mhm.
liked the most was when they talk between like parents, son and mom, or
Mhm.
daughter and dad, and it's
Mhm.
it's very the accent that I was exposed to. It was very soft.
Mm.
It was very soft, but then I heard people you know from
Moscow.
Moscow, and it was
Yeah.
very strong. And I was like, well,
Yeah, it's very different.
I hear it, the same words,
Mm.
it's the
Yes.
same,
Mhm.
it's the same words, but it's different. I still can pick it up. I can still say, oh, it's Russian, but I'm like,
Yeah.
why is it different? And it's the same thing in
It's the
Spanish.
cadence. It's the music of the intonation is different.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
that happens. You
Yeah.
you hear.
Well, you're a musical person, you can hear it, and I had to work on it really hard when I got to California because California also has a very soft cadence to it, and
Yeah.
you wrap everything in 10 layers of
Yeah.
cotton candy.
Yeah, because we're like
Um,
very relaxed. We think of ourselves
yeah,
as beach people, beach culture.
yeah.
We're laid back. Yeah,
So when I came here with my Moscow directness,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was not
Yeah,
received
with,
well.
with, with your hammer and the
Yeah, and the sickle.
you were like, oh, what happened here? Yeah, I got it. And me, I was too soft for them. I had the same on the other end.
Mm,
It was like too
that's
too
funny.
much apologies, too much, and they were like, just say whatever you want. People was mad at me because I had all this I had all this background that I couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
I had to be me. And
Mhm.
I don't want to make my kids go through that trouble, but I do want them to be polite. I want them. They know how to say please and excuse me, and they know I make them, excuse me, apologize verbally and physically when they get in trouble and when they do something wrong to another person. They have to address it facing with their eyes, with their whole body demeanor. They have to address that. It's very important. In a
Yeah.
family has a lot of ingredients that are needed, but some of the pillars of a family are love,
Yes.
acceptance, and forgiveness. You have to be able to forgive another human being because we all messed up every day, all the time.
Yeah.
And so we have to first accept that we messed up all the time. So then we understand and we accept other people is going to be like us, and then we just have to,
Yep.
and then we just have to make a habit of go and say I'm sorry because we recognize that messed up all the time. So that is the kind of
Yeah.
culture that I pass on to my
Yeah.
kids. That is the
I
kind of
that's
culture. They come from a cool country that I hope one day I can take them and they can see it. And we
Yeah.
come from a very musical background, and they all know that, and my house is full of instruments everywhere, and sometimes when they play and they
Yeah.
just grab them and start playing. you know i
That's
i
great.
own not a piano, an electronic keyboard piano,
Mhm.
and I have my drums and my guitars and a
Mhm.
bunch of stuff that I play.
Yeah.
so,
That's so cool.
so
So what's the biggest thing that's the best thing about the United States for you? Like you're living here, you're growing family here. What's the biggest value that you see
what
here?
I appreciate in this country is that that it was based on principles that I share, um, and freedom, and freedom of expressing who you are
Mhm.
and how you feel, and the freedom of not expressing anything if you don't want to express anything. I think that's important too. I think silence is a big tool that we don't use
Hmm.
very often, and as well as expressing yourself in any way. I I love that. I believe that that's the only way to embrace differences, and that's what I teach my kids. To embrace differences. Somebody that is not exactly like you doesn't have to be wrong.
Mhm.
And even if in your list of values they're doing something that is very wrong for you, you are not the one to judge why they're doing it.
Yeah.
You don't have to associate with them, but you don't have to hate them either.
Right.
And
Yeah.
um in my household we don't use the word hate at all. And I only use it when I'm explaining something, like right now I'm talking to you. But we don't ever, ever say, I hate this, I hate that, I hate that person, oh, I hate that moment, oh, I hate that ride, I hate that,
Mm.
oh, I hated my shoes, I hated this day. We don't use the word hate. We don't hate. We don't hate.
That's it for today. It was a bit of an abrupt ending there. What happened is the internet got cut off. It actually happened a few times in the course of the conversation, but hopefully we did a decent job gluing it all together and you didn't even notice. Tune in on Thursday for part 2 of my conversation with Charlie. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a review. Leave us a review. Leave us a review, please. Follow us on social media. And remember, we're here to stay. We'll find our way. Thank you for listening. Love you all. Peace.
Country, you can keep the rest. This is my country, my damn country, and it don't mean a thing.